Good evening. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the McConnell Arts Center. My name is Kimberly Goodman, and I am the Executive Director. Is anyone here for the first time tonight in this building? Oh, wonderful. Great. We would love to see you again. On your way out the door, there are all sorts of pamphlets and announcements of things that are happening here this season. Today, we actually launched something called a Lifelong Learning Institute, and we have 8 weeks of programming on Wednesdays for folks that have that time in their schedule available with a variety of topics and lots to learn. And we have a performing arts series and all sorts of things happening here. So we'd love to see you back. And thank you so much for coming tonight. And I'm going to introduce you to my dear friend, Matt.
Yes, I am a dear friend. My name's Elizabeth Grieser. I'm with the League of Women Voters of Metropolitan Columbus. It's great to see such a wonderful turnout here in Worthington. I have to admit I have a little bit of a special interest in this particular forum because I also live in Worthington. So I will be voting on these candidates, which is really exciting. We have 6 other candidate forums planned throughout the season in other cities and suburbs and the city of Columbus. So thank you so much for coming out today. I wanted to thank McConnell Arts Center for hosting us. This is such a wonderful venue. Also, Boxland Media for professionally recording this forum. I've told a few other people this, but 2 years ago, I was recording this forum myself on my cell phone. So you are in luck this year. You do not have to watch a recording from my cell phone. We are live streaming this event, and then we will have it recorded both on the League of Women Voters YouTube Facebook page and on the Chamber of Commerce's page as well. So, and finally, I really want to thank the Worthington Chamber of Commerce for really stepping up and helping us plan this candidate forum. Now into a little bit of voting information. Please make sure you have a plan to vote this November 7th. Early in-person voting starts October 11th, the Franklin County Board of Elections on Morse Road. If you want to vote by mail, you'll have to submit a written absentee ballot request. You can't do that online, and you can't call in to request a ballot. So you do have to submit a paper form that you have signed saying that you'd like to vote by mail. You can also verify your election day polling location by contacting the Franklin County Board of Elections. In addition to these candidate forums, the League publishes annually a voter guide in which candidates provide written answers to questions. Our voter guides will be available at the end of September online at vote411.org. And we will also have hard copies available at local libraries, including the local Worthington libraries. The voter guide lists all candidates running for election in Franklin County, as well as issues on the ballot. So the League of Women Voters is dedicated to expanding public awareness about government issues and encouraging active participation in government. The League does not support or oppose any political parties or candidates. We are a membership organization, so if you're interested in joining us as we do these nonpartisan voting activities, please see our website and join us. Now I'd like to turn this event over to tonight's moderator, Matt Laffey, who's Executive Director of the Worthington Area Chamber of Commerce.
Hello and welcome to tonight's Meet the Candidates Forum. I'm honored to serve as the moderator. I actually just celebrated my 2nd anniversary serving in this role with our Chamber of Commerce. I started in the heat of last campaign season, and then now I'm moderating during this campaign season, so I must not be doing something too bad. But it's an absolute honor to be here with you tonight, and a special welcome to everyone that is joining us through the live stream brought to us by Boxland Media. I wanted to share that Chambers of Commerce, since the beginning, have served their communities in building consensus and helping craft a vision for the future of our communities. And with the expectation of timely results and that all voices are included in the conversation, our chamber is new to doing this here in Worthington, and I believe that we are positioned to serve as a conduit for not just our businesses, but our community and our civic leaders to come together and play that central role as a trusted platform for information sharing for those who work, live, and play here in Worthington. And it's my belief that chambers of commerce must serve as instigators of positive change than merely a resource helping us cope with change. And so with that, that is why I'm excited to be partnering with the League of Women Voters of Metropolitan Columbus to be a part of tonight's forum. The races participating in tonight's event are for Worthington City School Board and Worthington City Council. I want to begin by explaining kind of the rules of the road today, all of which were agreed upon by all participants in advance, and they signed a contract that they would not make me be in any tough situations to cut them off. Tonight, each candidate will be given 1 minute to introduce themselves. I will ask questions, and all candidates will be permitted no more than 2 minutes to answer each question. Each candidate will have the opportunity to answer the question, and I will change the order in which candidates are asked the questions for each question moving forward. Then candidates will close with a 1-minute final statement. Some of the questions have been pre-written, and the remainder will be solicited from the audience. And audience members, you'll be able to ask your questions by submitting them in writing. And there are wonderful League volunteers that will review your question before handing it to me. The League reserves the right to reject audience questions if they are inappropriate or repetitive. And please print very clearly. Candidates then will see our timekeeper, who is right here, dead center stage, who will indicate that the speaker has 30 seconds remaining, 10 seconds remaining, and that your time has expired. If a candidate continues to speak, I will do what I do with my toddler at home, and I will just do a poorly timed dad joke, much louder than you, and ask you to move on. But I want to end on this note before I kick it to our school board candidates. I attended a 3-day leadership training last week, and the biggest takeaway that I left with, and that has been front and center in my mind and penetrated the heart of my heart of hearts, is this: that as leaders, we must be defined by our vision for a future instead of a memory of the past. And so with that, we have a great opportunity to hear from great civic leaders and servant leaders of their visions for the future of our community. So with that being said, we will hear right now from candidates running for 2 open seats on our Worthington City School Board with Leah Brakey, Amber Epling, Eric Farley, and Stephanie Harless. Starting with our first question, or not first question, you'll have 1 minute to introduce yourself, and we will start right here in alphabetical order with you, Leah.
Hi, I'm Leah Brakey. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here tonight. I was born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. My husband and I moved our family here to Worthington 20 years ago. We have 3 daughters, 2 who have already graduated from the Worthington School District. They're both married, so now I have sons as well. My oldest has a job in market research, and my middle daughter is attending OU to get her master's degree in speech language pathology. My youngest started her freshman year at Thomas this year. I work part-time running the family business with my sister. If I earn a seat on the board, I aim to help Worthington focus on academic excellence and make sure that Worthington's reputation as a leader in academics is extended to all students in every building. That's the reason my family and I moved here 20 years ago. Thank you.
And Amber.
My name is Amber Epling. I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce and the League of Women Voters for putting this event on. I have 3 school-age daughters in the district, 2 at Worthington Kilbourne High School and a middle schooler at McCord, and also an infant son. I am proud to be one of only 2 of the candidates on the stage who have been endorsed by the Worthington Education Association, which is the Worthington teachers, the local union. I'm very proud of that endorsement, and I have been active in PTA leadership throughout the last 10 years when my daughters have been in school. And I feel like I have some skills and experience that could be beneficial for the Board of Education. My professional background is in strategic communications. I've worked in government for the last 10 years, serving as communications director for the Ohio General Assembly and currently Columbus City Auditor Megan Kilgore's office. I have also worked in higher education, and my background is in journalism. So I feel like when we're talking about the reputation of the schools and the community, I could be helpful there.
Thank you, Eric.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters and the Chamber of Commerce for the opportunity to meet the voters. My name is Eric Farley. My wife and I have been residents of Worthington School District for about 22 years. I retired in 2016 from a long career as a scientist and computer programmer at Chemical Abstract Service, where my wife was a translator. Our son Alex attended Worthington States Elementary School and graduated from Thomas Worthington High School. I began to attend school board meetings almost a year ago, concerned about security at the high schools. You will not find my comments or concerns, nor those of many other parents and district residents, because the current board has shut off recording of public comments. Thus began my journey to reform the school board and make it responsive to the public. We seek fast reforms: fiscal, academic, safety, and transparency. I hope to address all of these concerns tonight. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Harless. My pronouns are she, her. I want to thank, as everyone has, the opportunity to be here this evening. I'm a graduate of Columbus Public Schools, and I have a master's degree in education, so I know what public education means to a strong community. And now my daughters attend Worthington schools. Early in my career, I was heavily involved in K-12 informal education at places like COSI, and I was also a science textbook editor at McGraw-Hill for a number of years. Currently, I'm the Director of Product Release and Enablement at a software company where I do things like project management, product planning, change management, all skills that I will bring to the board and combine with my background in education to be a strong board member for the City of Worthington, or the City of Worthington Schools. As a board member, I want to build an even stronger school community by connecting with members of throughout the community, especially those marginalized voices that are traditionally underrepresented. I also want to focus on mental health for our students and for our teachers, and I want to make sure that we're connected with other elected officials and stakeholders throughout the community so that we can proactively plan in Worthington. Thank you.
Thank you all for your introductions. I'm going to ask the first questions, and again, we'll have volunteers that are going to collect from anyone that is seated here today to answer some of your questions. But I'm going to get things started with one of our pre-screened questions here. And this one I'm going to start with Amber, and we'll go in order and then end with you, Leo. Now that phase 2 of the school's facilities master plan, which includes building and/or renovating the 2 high schools, is underway, what are your thoughts about the progress or success of the facilities master plan and the future phase 3 plans? And we'll start with you, Amber.
Sure. Thank you for that question. I think that the progress of the facilities plan is going very well. I think it's exciting to see the transformation of the high schools, specifically Thomas Worthington, that we're seeing happen right now, right before our eyes. I helped on the levy campaign committee that successfully saw that levy passed. Because I felt very strongly about that project and the continuation of the master plan. So I think as we're looking forward, though, we need to not lose sight of the elementary schools and the modernization and the renovations that are desperately needed there. As I'm talking to people, I do hear a lot about the increase in property taxes and how people are really, really feeling that burden. And I think that that's something we certainly need to hear and, as a school district, explore, maybe some other innovative funding sources, but we cannot lose sight of the master plan and continuing to keep that on track and get the elementary schools up to where they need to be for the 2023.
Thank you so much. We'll go on to you.
I'm pleased with the phase 2 progress. It's a little bit daunting to see what's happening to Thomas, but I am concerned about phase 3. We are on an unsustainable fiscal course at the moment, and How that plays out, how phase 3 plays out is a concern of mine. I believe that we need to have zero-based budgeting. We need to reform the budgeting process so that we can get an insight into where we're spending. We need a performance audit to compare to surrounding districts and districts around the state. We're spending much more than comparable districts, and our performance is not up to those districts. We're good at spending money, but we need to be good at teaching. And we do have a problem with elementary schools. Some of the elementary schools are in very bad shape, so I agree that we have to do something about them. That is going to be, it's going to be difficult, and we will, but we have residents, as I have been walking around talking to residents, the tax burden is really, it's on everybody's mind. There are many people who think they may have to leave the district if we have another levy. So the question, what are we going to do? We have to be concerned about this, and one of the first things we should do is really take a close look at the budget and see why we are spending more and getting less. Thank you.
I'm excited that we have a plan that's underway that is going to give some changes to both of our high schools. Certainly Thomas is getting a lot, but Kilbourne was in need of some changes as well. And so I'm pleased with the progress so far, and I'm excited to see where it continues to go. When we think about moving forward into phase 3, our elementary schools have a varying degree of need, and it's going to take a lot of evaluation and a lot of planning to determine what we need to do to each of the elementary schools while also anticipating for potential growth in the district. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. We just have to proactively plan for it. Amber's correct. When we talk to other community members throughout the district, they are concerned about property taxes. It's becoming more and more expensive to live in Worthington. So I think we need to think outside the box. We need to work with, I'm a big proponent of working with other elected officials in all areas, all neighborhoods of the district, to figure out what development they are looking at, what sort of revenue that's going to bring to our schools. In Ohio, our schools are funded by property taxes, and although it's not a great model, it's the model under which we live. And so we can work with other reps at the state level to lobby against that and try to get that changed, but meanwhile, within the district, we can work to find other sources of funding. What a lot of people don't know is that we have a couple apartment complexes within the city of Worthington itself. They bring the schools a lot of revenue and not a lot of students. So development like this is really important, not just to our community, but also to our school districts so that we can be vibrant and continue to be fiscally responsible.
I'd say I'm very pleased with the progress. Having a freshman at Thomas, we actually were able to benefit from phase 1 as well at Worthing Way, and then now onto Thomas. So this will be an interesting 3 years for her as the building is torn down and redone. But I'll echo what everyone else said, that I do have concerns about, what this means for the people in the district and whether or not we're making the taxes so high that we are pushing people out of the district. So we do need to be creative and figure out how we can finance that phase 3 moving forward.
Thank you all. We have our first submitted question from an audience member. How much latitude should parents have to object to and have removed subject matter they do not like? And keeping in line with our transitions, we'll start with you, Eric.
I don't like the idea of removing books. I do like the idea of parents' rights. I like the idea of parents having some input into what their children are exposed to in school. But schools have to serve all children, and they have to serve all parents. And that's public school. That's the nature of public school. So the removal of material bothers me. There is some material, yes, which is perhaps inappropriate in schools completely. That gets a lot of media attention. It's not that significant of a problem. But there is a lot of material that probably needs some parental input, in my opinion. And I support the idea of parents being able to opt in, opt out, other things that provide satisfaction to the diversity of people that we have coming into public schools. We have to serve all of the people, and we have to do it well because they're the customer. And we have to, if we're driving the customer away, and that's what's happening with private schools, people are going to private schools because they don't like things in public schools. When there are options that we can do with libraries, with curriculum, that let all parents feel good about sending their kids to public schools, we will stop leaking and draining kids. We will stop having the brain drain of kids going to public schools or going to private schools from public schools. So I'm hoping that, I hope that we can do something about that. Thank you.
Stephanie?
I trust our teachers. I trust our librarians. I trust the people within the district that have reviewed, designed, adopted the curriculum. Public education is for everybody. And I understand that there are parents that may have concerns about specific topics. I understand there are parents that may have concerns about things that their students are seeing. But when they make that choice for their students and try to have that book or that topic removed from schools, they make that choice for all of our students. And that's not a decision that I'm comfortable with. And just removing a topic from the curriculum doesn't mean that it goes away. And so our curriculum and our textbooks and all of the things are designed to comprehensively teach our students critical thinking, to teach them all of the skills that they're going to need to succeed outside of the classroom. And when you start piecemeal removing things from that, it damages that overall curriculum. And we need to teach our students to be critical thinkers, to go in and look at a text that maybe they don't even agree with and think about, why was this written? What is the context under which this was published? Or what was the author thinking? Or what is their background? All of those things they need to learn in order to go out into the world where they're going to be confronted with things that they may not understand, they may not agree with. So it's a very slippery slope to talk about removing content from the classroom.
And Leah?
So I feel like, actually in the policy, there is a policy in Worthington schools right now that says that parents are the #1 educator of their children. And I feel like that we do have some latitude in what we can say that we want our kids to opt in and opt out of. I know that books in the library are a very big subject right now. People say, you know, are you a book banner? That's a big question that you get when you're talking to people. I wouldn't say that I want to ban books, but I do feel like there are books that are currently in the libraries that are not appropriate for school-age children. And I do think that parents should have a say in, you know, what their kids are checking out from the library and even what's available in the library if it crosses that line to be inappropriate for children.
We are going to try so we can answer as many questions to hold your applause until the end.
I will say that I think this, and this is a national movement we're talking about, this whole idea of parents' rights. This is something that's just being pushed onto local school boards that's got a lot of money behind it, and it's coming from the national level. I will say parents here in Worthington have always had the right to question curriculum and have always had the right to pull their children out of public schools if they didn't agree with what was being taught there, have always had the right to question a book that was being used in the classroom. So this idea of parents' rights, I think, is a little disingenuous. Like, it hasn't existed until now. It's always been there, and teachers have always encouraged parents to have a very hands-on role in the classroom. So this effort, I think, is more about, and Stephanie mentioned it too, it's not about parents' rights, it's about for their own children. I don't mind parents having the right to say things about their own children. My problem with it is when it comes down to my children, right? Like, I too trust the teachers and the librarians and the curriculum experts who have had a whole lifetime and professional career of being trained on these subjects. So I think that we need to leave it up to them. Parents should absolutely be involved in their children's lives and in their education. And I think that I just think this is a disingenuous movement is my problem with it, I guess.
Well, thank you all for answering those questions. This is another submitted question from someone in the audience. Worthington Schools report card has been going down. What do you plan to do to turn this around? And Stephanie, keep it in order. We'll start with you.
I actually looked that up very recently because I saw a post saying that our report card had gone down. And I would contend that it's not gone down a statistically significant amount. Nonetheless, it is important that we pay attention to the academics in the classroom. It is important that we pay attention to the whole child and potentially understand what is going on that is prohibiting them from learning, right? So this goes into, I talk a lot about mental health in my campaign. That's something that's really important when you think about how students are learning. But there's no doubt that COVID has taken a toll on all school districts across the state. Experts believe that for some areas, and Worthington is fortunate that it probably won't be there, it may take up to 10 years to really see everything level back off, right? Things that were beyond our control, a national pandemic, happened, and here we are, and we have to figure out how to get around that. And so certainly as a board, we have to look at all of the data that's available. We have to look at the data at a very granular level to really suss out what the issues are. But I'm not sure there's a whole lot of there yet, but we will figure that out as we dig into it.
Yeah, I think my campaign, what drove me to run, part of what drove me to run was getting Worthington back to just education first, and all the issues of the day and keeping all of that out of the classroom and just focusing on teaching the children to read by third grade. And I know that I believe that science and reading is something that is being implemented in Worthington, and I think that's going to be great. I think that's coming through the pandemic, I think that we have a lot of those younger readers that are lagging behind, and I think that if we can adopt that in all the schools and move forward with that reading, that would help, because once you build that foundation, everything goes from there.
Thank you.
I will say I think chasing rankings is kind of a dangerous way to run a school district. But that said, I think that reputation is incredibly important. My background is in leadership communications. I specialize in reputation management. There's always room for progress. I think we have a fantastic school district here. I think we have a great community that feels a lot of pride for that school district. But I, would of course love to see more national recognition and more, increasing in the rankings that we're seeing. But I don't think that should be what it's all about. I think we need to be focused on the kids. We need to be focused on, meeting the children where they are and getting them the resources they need to be successful in the future. And I think that the rankings will just increase based on that performance if we just
I'd like to actually take a look at the report card right here. I have a friend who asked me the question, why are we talking about various peripheral things when we have third graders who can't read? And that was shocking to me. Hearing then about some of our elementary schools, which are at or below state average. I was surprised by that. My son went to Worthington Estates, and that's one of the schools which has a 4 achievement on this particular report card. We have a lot of 4s and 5s. We've got a lot of great schools, Evening Street, Bluffsview, 5s. I am concerned about where the schools are, not necessarily whether they're going up or down, because some of the ones that have been down have been persistently down. We have to do something about that. There's talk about redlining lately. Well, we have a northeast quadrant. Are we redlining it? It's 3s and 3s. We have to do something about it. It's a long project to actually do something about the overall district's numbers, to get those, to return academic excellence. And one metric of that is getting the numbers a little higher. And it'll take a long work, but it has to start with the elementary schools. And so I want to start with the elementary schools in the Northeast quadrant that need work. And it will be hard work, but we have to start there. They feed the middle schools that have 3s that need to improve. That's how we'll get those numbers up in the high schools where people are looking at those and comparing those and saying how those are ranked. It's a long thing. It may not be around when it happens.
Thank you all for answering that question. Do we have another, or would you like me to? That's what I thought. Thank you. In my role as president of the chamber, I've had the opportunity the second half of last school year and now looking at a full school year of collaborating with the Business Advisory Council to find ways that we can integrate our businesses into the efforts of this council to make sure that we are preparing our future workforce. And so I was just curious to throw this question out of where do you see our district's efforts and where we could be taking partnerships like this with our business community? And we'll start back with you, Leah.
Wow, that is an interesting question and not one that I've probably given a lot of thought to. I guess what comes to mind is having businesses come into the schools and kind of talk to the kids about what they do and, you know, setting up a job shadowing, that kind of thing, getting the businesses, I guess, just to come in and make sure that the kids are being prepared to go into the business field.
Thank you.
You've heard the expression of rising tide lifts all boats. Well, I think Intel is the rising tide here, and we don't want to end up on the bottom of the Scioto River. Like, we really need to focus on economic development. It is everything, I think, right now for this community, based on what's happening in Central Ohio and the transformations we're going to see in the coming years. I would love to see more, you know, collaboration between the school district and the municipalities that surround it. And because when we're talking about the taxes and the burden that people are under and the strain they're feeling, that's personal property tax. If we can increase the commercial property tax, that means bringing in businesses that will then have to pay that property tax to the school district. That lessens a little bit of the burden on the personal property tax piece of this. So I think economic development's huge. If I am elected to the school board, that's going to be something I really, really focus on is, you know, breaking down those silos where everybody's sort of doing their own thing and getting a lot of collaboration and working together happening.
I worked at Chemical Abstracts. I was surprised that we are not engaged with Chemical Abstracts is not engaged with the Worthington schools. We have a lot of Chemical Abstracts employees who live in this district. That's why I chose to come to this district, was all of the good talk about Worthington schools at Chemical Abstracts. And it was a good decision, I believe. Hearing that Battelle, one of our sort of competitors, has a good relationship with the Portrait of a Learner, and that's telling me that some of the businesses are not taking advantage of relationships that they should. I believe that we do need to reach out to businesses and invite relationships with them, interning, mentors, things of that nature. There's also some caution, though, that goes with that. I think that schools need to be teaching ethics. I think that ethics is very important, especially in our high schools, and especially for scientists. This is as STEM becomes more and more important, we see out in the world a failure of ethics. And I believe that there needs to be a renewed emphasis on the humanities for scientists, and in general, a tendency toward a liberal arts type education. So if I am on the school board, I'll be looking to improve, to broaden STEM just a little bit so that we have the ethics of science being taught in our curriculum.
Thank you, Stephanie.
I think there's kind of three buckets, if you think about this, that we can focus on. One of them, which everybody's kind of touched on, is partnering with local businesses. And you can do a variety of things, whether that's internships or a number of things. That one is kind of hard to scale, but it's important. It's that hands-on in the world experience. We already have a very strong relationship with Delaware Career Center. In fact, it's a very sought-after space in the Delaware Career Center. So, and we have wanted as a district to expand that. There just has not been that opportunity. But that's where this kind of third piece comes in. So Intel, we're going to say Intel a million times tonight. Everybody's going to say Intel. It's probably going to come up with City Council too. It's important. Intel's a big deal. It's the biggest single investment of any company in Central or in Ohio ever. So we're going to see impact everywhere. They're going to put some money into K-12 education, so we can benefit potentially from that. They're going to put even more money into college level education, right? So if the colleges are going to get money and they're going to prepare kids to work there, then we need to also partner with the colleges so we can understand what those tracks look like, so that there's a seamless transition from Worthington to college to the out into the world.
Thank you all. I would not do my job as the president of the chamber if I didn't throw in something with businesses and workforce. I think we have one more from the audience. This one and then this one. Cool. We have another submitted question from an audience member. The Worthington School District is rejecting to carry large cash balances in the operating fund for the foreseeable future. Given this, would you be supportive of the district foregoing one of the increased planned, I'm not good at reading, writing, I'm very sorry, one of the increased planned, foregoing one of the way, tax. Thank you. I was putting it together. I was like, tax increase plans. Sorry, I don't read print well. Sorry. And we'll start with Amber.
Could you read it again?
Could you read that again?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
It might be time for me to go to new glasses. The Worthington School District is.
Can I read it?
Yeah.
Who wrote it?
Okay, thank you. I promise I know how to read. The last question I have is, how would you raise adult men to read better? No, the Worthington School District is projecting to carry a large cash balance in the operating fund for the foreseeable future. Given this, would you be supportive of the district foregoing one of the tax increase planned? There we go. And we'll start with Amber. Sorry, I can't read.
Okay, I'd be interested to know where that information came from. I know that we do have a pretty healthy surplus right now just because of a lot of one-time revenues, as a result of the pandemic that came through, in the form of ARPA and CARES Act dollars and everything. But those are one-time revenues. I don't know that we can project that that's going to always be there. We are expecting, an influx of population and possibly businesses and economic development. But again, I don't know that we can guarantee that increase is going to be there. So I kind of have a little bit of a problem with just the basis for the question, because I don't know what evidence they're looking at. I serve on the Treasurer's Advisory Committee here in the district, and so I don't recall discussions about that. But I think that when we're talking about the next phase of the facilities plan, and I said this earlier too, we really do need to get innovative. I don't know that relying entirely on levies and bonds is the best way to fund the next phase. Perhaps, there's opportunities for fundraising. Perhaps there's naming rights on the buildings. Perhaps there's alumni donations that we could pull from. I worked in higher education, and that's a huge part of what higher ed does is, we have a very passionate alumni base here in Worthington. Is that something that we could look at? So I think there are other ways for sure that we do need to investigate and look into. But again, I maintain, we have to stay on the path we're on. We cannot just leave the elementary schools the way they are. That phase 3 is so critically important to the district, and we really can't lose sight of that.
First, I'd like to just restate what that question is. That question is talking about the extremely large operating surplus that we have. It's roughly $125 million. To put that in perspective, the annual budget is roughly $150, $160 million, and headed in 27, according to the five-year forecast by our treasurer, headed up toward around $200 million. That is not this massive surplus is not the result of one-time COVID. It's not the result of that. It is a long-term, persistent buildup of a surplus. Some people have said, well, why isn't that money in people's savings accounts? People don't have savings accounts because the money is there getting interest, $125 million roughly. And that is that operating surplus. Contrast that with the periodic levies that we're having, these multi-year levies, 2.9 mils, 2 mils, 2 mils, 2 mils, and then we get another multi-year levy. And it's this repeated multi-year levies, one after another, that has built up this surplus. The question is do we need more levies? I think this question, which asks, should we forego one of those levies, is an excellent question. I don't have an answer to that yet, but I would like to see what TJ says. I would like to see TJ's projections based on that option or the option of delaying levies.
Thank you. Stephanie.
First, I want to acknowledge that as a district, we have done multi-year levies, which no other district in Central Ohio does, and that was done in an effort to not put all of the onus of responsibility on the taxpayer up front. So they have endeavored from the beginning to put as little responsibility on you as possible, knowing that we have this funding model. I support being fiscally responsible. That's yes, right? We have to make the numbers work. Without looking at the budget right now, without having it in front of me and the spend over the subsequent years, it's very difficult to say, yes, we absolutely should forego a levy. And having a surplus isn't inherently bad or wrong. We will need that money. We will. So I can't give a hard answer because I'm not looking at the numbers in front of me, but just in general, I don't think we're in a position to forego one of the tax increases.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, if that money is in there and it is possible to forego that levy and still keep moving, with the master plan of updating the elementaries, then absolutely I would be in favor of it. We have to do something to alleviate the strain on the residents and their taxes.
Thank you all for your patience and bearing in with my inability to read. And whoever's question I butchered, I'm very sorry. This one I can read. We're going to do one last question, then we're going to go into our closing statements. This is submitted again from someone that is sitting out there with you. Do you support Mothers of Liberty? And we're going to start with you, Eric.
I disagree with Mothers of Liberty on several topics, which is why I am not seeking their endorsement, and I don't know if they would endorse me, but though I do share an interest in what is called parents' rights, which I do not believe is disingenuous. I believe parents are essential. They're an essential part of education, and I think it's disingenuous to say that, for instance, people calling Moms for Liberty an extremist organization. They're interested in parents having a role in the moral, educational, and medical upbringing of their kids. I think this is a wonderful thing. And that's all kids. I believe in parents' rights for all parents, and I believe that they're the best ones to take care of. So as for Moms for Liberty, their parents' rights pledge, I signed that. I'm quite comfortable with that. As for books in schools, I disagree on the idea of taking books out of schools, but but I can go along with other solutions that are amenable to the schools. They need to be agreed on by schools and parents.
Moms for Liberty may purport to be a parents' rights group. They have been labeled by the Southern Poverty Law Center as an anti-government extremist group. They have called for the disbanding of the Department of Education. They promote book banning. They are anti-LGBTQIA+, excuse me, I'm tongue-tied up here. And they are explicitly anti-trans. These are marginalized members of our community that are already at higher risk for mental health challenges, specifically suicide attempts. So, no, I do not support them.
And Leah, we're going to hold our applause. Leah.
I also did not seek an endorsement from Moms of Liberty. I do agree with their philosophy of protecting the parents' rights. I know some people say parents have always had the rights, which we do have rights, but I see the trajectory of where that's going, where some of those rights are being taken away. There are things that are happening in the schools that these schools are keeping from the parents, and I don't think that's right. I think that the parent needs to be informed. This is kind of a new phenomenon that hasn't happened before until we started getting into the transgender movement, where if a kid had an issue at school, the parents were the first ones that they told. And then now it seems like the parents can be, in some situations, the last ones to hear. I think that's what I feel like we would want to try to protect the parents' rights. And I think that's part of what Moms for Liberty stands for. I honestly haven't looked into them a great deal. Like I said, I didn't seek their endorsement. But I do believe that parents should have the right to know what is being taught in the school and protect the right to know what their child is doing in the school.
Thank you. Amber.
I do not support Moms for Liberty for all the reasons Stephanie just outlined. They are an extremist group, and this is a further continuation of the national movement that I mentioned earlier that is targeting school boards across this country and intimidating and harassing teachers, children, and school board members. I don't support it. This is not how you go about with free speech in a democratic nation. These are dangerous groups, and I do not support them.
Thank you all for answering that. We are going to our 1-minute closing statements, and I believe, Stephanie, you are up first. Keep it in our order.
I want to thank everybody that's in the audience here. I want to thank everybody that's streaming this live at home, because local politics matters so much, and you've shown your commitment to that by listening in and investing this amount of time. So thank you, truly. I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and work for this community and work with all of you. We have some big changes that are coming to Central Ohio, and it's my commitment to all of you that I will work with other elected officials. I will work with members of this community. I will listen to members of this community so that we can proactively plan for those changes. It's also my commitment to you that I will listen to voices across the district to ensure that all of our students feel seen, they feel supported, they feel represented, and they feel safe, because that is how you build a strong community. The mental health of our students is important. The mental health of our teachers, our staff, and administrators is important as well, and I want to work on that as a school board member. So I will leave you with this. Early voting starts October 11th. So please, if you vote October 11th or all the way leading up to November 7th, please vote Stephanie Harless for Worthington School Board.
Yeah. We'll do a big clap and a round of applause. We're going to get through this speed round.
Thank you, everybody who gave up their Wednesday evening to come and listen to us tonight. And I just hope that what you've heard from me just gives you a glimpse into my heart and what I want for Worthington schools. I never thought I would find myself up here running for school board. But after what I've seen happen in the last several years in Worthington schools, where I feel like the school board over the last several years has kind of has not taken into account what the community really wants. I want to make sure that I'm building that bridge between the school board and the community so that everyone can be heard. Thank you.
The importance of this election and all local elections really, but cannot be overstated. We have 2 open seats on a 5-seat board. So depending on who you vote into those seats could really, really change the trajectory of the district. So I really applaud you all for being here and for those streaming at home and making informed decisions. So thank you for that. My campaign slogan is "Our Schools, Our Legacy." And what I mean by that is these are legacy years for Worthington. Not only Worthington, but also Central Ohio. We're really at a crossroads, and our schools are a reflection of who we are as a community. And do we want to be a welcoming and inclusive community that seeks to constantly improve and attract people to Worthington? Or are we wanting to send the message that, you know, Worthington is only open to some and not all? So I really think we need to look hard at who we are and what we want to be in the future. And I hope you consider me for Worthington School Board. My name's Amber Epling. You can find more information about me, my background, my campaign at amberepling.com.
Thank you. Eric?
I'd like to thank everyone for coming here tonight and for watching and listening online. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and the Chamber of Commerce for putting together this program and the McConnell Arts Center for hosting it. We all love Worthington schools, but they need more than just our love. They need attention to their core purpose, which is education of our precious children. Are we spending too much and getting too little in academics? Are we making all children, teachers, staff, and guests less safe in a very real sense? Because we have falsely defined safety as the absence of fears that we ourselves encourage. Are we hiding problems from the public by shutting off public comments? Are we stigmatizing the public by calling them extremists when they just want to fix problems created by an activist board? I am asking you for your vote on November 7th so I can provide leadership in addressing these problems. Together, we can bring balance to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all 4 of you for your time here tonight and for your dedication to wanting to serve and lead our schools into the future. I'm just slinging questions and nervous as can be, so I can only imagine the sacrifice you're taking from your family and doing this for our community. So thank you so very much for your time. Can we give them one more round of applause? Thank you. If you would like to walk off stage this way, and we're gonna just transition right into City Council if you'd like to come up this way. And we'll just segue right into our forum with City Council candidates. Yes. All right. We're gonna go ahead and get right into our City Council candidates. We have 7 candidates here for 3 open seats, and I'm gonna pause right there. The water's right here. All right, we have 3 open seats for Worthington City Council, and they will all be hydrated while they're up here answering questions. Sitting up here today, we have Felicity Beck, Pete Booker, Tom Burns, Rachel Dorothy, Mike Duffy, Amy Lloyd, and Doug Smith. Just as we did for the school board candidates, we're going to begin with a 1-minute introduction from each candidate, and then we'll continue in a different order with each question. And we have pre-screened questions, as well as we'll be taking questions from you in the audience. Remember, I don't read so good, so please write legibly and very large. And lastly, we're going to hold all applauses, moans, and groans until the end, please. With that being said, we're going to start in alphabetical order as we did with the school board. So we will start with a 1-minute introduction from you, Felicity.
Hi, I'm Felicity Beck, and I have been lucky enough to grow up in Worthington since I was 10. I graduated from its schools. I raised both my children here. I opened my business, Whacked Hair Salon, in our beautiful historic downtown. And I am now running for city council because I want to give back to the community, our community, that has given me so much. And I'm inspired to do this now because there are so many big, important issues like UMCH, Anthem, housing, the pools, deer, and so much more. And these have been around for a long time, and it's time to act now. We can do hard things. And I have listened through 20 years, my daily work. I have listened to my clients share with me what they think makes our city so special. And if I get to City Council, I promise that I will bring with me what I hear from you, and also sound instincts, good judgment, and the ability to act.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Pete?
Yeah, thank you. Well, good to be here with everybody. Thank you to everyone who helped put this event on. It's always a highlight of the election cycle, and thank you all for coming out and for streaming this at home. My name is Pete Booker. I'm currently in my first term on City Council. My wife and I live on the west side of the community. I'm a native of the school district and a graduate as well as of The Ohio State University. In my day job, I'm the Chief of Staff at the Ohio Environmental Council, and there in that work, we work with local, state, and federal government, businesses, and communities to try to balance our environment with our economies. And that's exactly the type of approach I've tried to bring to City Council, and the approach I want to continue to bring, where we work with everyone, let everyone be heard, and try to find that balance, whatever decision we're making. And while I do feel there's been a tremendous amount of momentum and positivity in the last 4 years, even dealing with the pandemic, there's quite a bit left to do. And so that's why I'm running to continue to make sure we have responsible development, make sure we have increased environmental sustainability, make sure we purposefully are addressing our infrastructure as we've tried to do, and so much more that we'll get into tonight. But thank you for everyone for being here, and thanks for having me.
Tom?
Yeah, hello everyone, and thanks to Matt and the League, the Chamber, and the MAC for hosting us tonight. I'm really excited to be here. I'm Tom Burns, and I'm running for council because I want to uplift my community. In my teenage years, I spent the summers at my grandmother's apartment in Chicago, the Little Village neighborhood, which is called the Mexico of the Midwest. And what I remember the most about that neighborhood is how tight-knit that community was. From the neighbors in the apartment building, our friend Rose across the way, all the way to the churchgoers down the block, you always felt like you were part of something bigger. And it's those experiences that made me realize it's not buildings, it's not parks, it's not roads that make community, it's people. I believe our role as elected officials in creating community is twofold: create inclusive policies so that people feel welcome and comfortable, such as the non-discrimination ordinance I worked on as a member of the Community Relations Commission, and to create a built environment that allows our neighbors space to create community. You create community, and no elected official can do it themselves. I'm excited to explain tonight how I want to include all of you in my vision of what Worthington can be and how we can come together to make Worthington better tomorrow together.
Thank you. Rachel?
Good evening. Thank you, Matt, the Chamber, and the League of Women Voters for hosting this. I'm Rachel Dorothy. I am a mechanical engineer specializing in sustainable building design. I have 20 years of experience in that. 2 years, I was a project manager for Columbus Rec and Park. I served on the CWA union as a union rep for Rec and Park there. I wasn't able to run for re-election. I have been elected 3 times to Worthington City Council, and I adore living here in Worthington. When I came with my son, who went through Colonial Hills, Phoenix, Thomas, became an Eagle Scout, and now is a full-time firefighter at the City of Moraine, I jumped into public service, serving on the BZA and City Council. I want to continue my work here at the city. I was here when we started the visioning process, and I want to move forward and getting the visioning goals done as we started in 2019.
Thank you. And Mike?
I'm Mike Duffy. I'm here to say Worthington is different for all the right reasons. Not grandiose, but authentic. Small shops like Whacked Hair Salon, Joya's, walkable neighborhoods. We aren't like other communities. This election is what Matt Laffey talked about, a positive future. Change is part of that, but what kind of change? Sure, we could imitate Hilliard, New Albany, Sunbury, Dublin, but why would we want to? Which future are we going to choose? I think residents want and need more housing all across the city, not just one spot, and not just rental. I also think that they want landmark spaces, Spaces that bring us together and that are free for all.
Thank you.
Seniors connecting. Thank you.
Thank you. And will you please move those? Respectfully, not biased or anything. And Amy?
Thank you. Thank you all for being here this evening. My name is Amy Lloyd. I'm an 18-year resident of the city of Worthington, living with my family in the Worthington Estates neighborhood. But I grew up in the larger Worthington community in Brookside Estates, and I'm a 1996 graduate of Worthington-Kilbourne High School. I'm running for Worthington City Council because I want to continue to be involved in my community and planning for the future. As a landlocked city, we have challenges related to increasing our tax base to help both the city and schools, analyzing and determining where housing could be built to help create attainable and diverse housing options and be welcoming to everyone. I am serving a current term on our school board that concludes at the end of 2023. Prior to that, I served on the city's Architectural Review Board for 12 years. I love to learn from the history of our community, reflect on the past, and look towards the future in a thoughtful and sustainable way.
Great, thanks. Hi, everybody. I'm Doug Smith. I've been serving you on City Council for the past 12 years. I live in Old Worthington, Wilson Hill neighborhood with my wife and 4 children. My day job, I'm in project management. I've led sustainability initiatives like the Transitional Community Garden Program and the Renewable Energy Electric Aggregation Program, which saves residents thousands of dollars on their electric bills over the course of the program. I've supported dozens of appropriate land use developments throughout the city, throughout my time, and have opposed several high-density development proposals in order to protect Worthington's character and family-friendly neighborhoods. I have proactively communicated with residents about current city issues. Check out my blog at DougSmithOhio.com to read the current articles. Residents can contact me when they have specific issues or they need help with city services or simply to voice concerns. And I'll continue to do that and represent you on Worthington City Council.
Thank you all for your introductions. I'm going to kick things off with a question from my angle at the chamber. We recently hosted William Murdoch, the executive director of MORPC, on the Amplify Worthington podcast, which will be dropping here in the next week or two. And he talked about the 2050 population growth forecasts that back, I believe, in 2018, when they conducted this, was initially 3 million residents will be in Central Ohio. And now they've updated that forecast to an additional 150,000 on top of that to be here in Central Ohio. And locally, council and the city are conducting a housing assessment. So I wanted to ask, what do you believe is the city's role in addressing this? And remaining in the order, alphabetical order, we'll start with you, Pete.
Yeah, well, that's really the question of communities like Worthington right now with the region booming and continue to thrive. And I think, as you mentioned, the city has already initiated the process of starting a housing assessment. So hopefully that gives us really good information and modern information that shows us where we can build housing, maybe what types of housing we're lacking in, and hopefully what resources we'll take to build such housing in the future. So for me, it's not really about saying no new housing or no new citizens. That's inevitable. That's a good thing. It's just figuring out where they fit appropriately, where do they not put undue burden on communities, the school district, things like that. And so that's when I talk about development. It's just about responsible development, looking at all the factors involved and figuring out how we can make the most of this growth so Worthington can position itself for a long time to come, because the region's thriving, and that's a terrific thing. We just have to balance all of our needs when we look at new housing.
All right. Tom.
Yeah, I think an inner-ring suburb like Worthington has a pretty significant role to play in the Central Ohio region. I think that's probably the most important thing, is that we don't have a 30-foot wall that's outside of Worthington that's going to keep us from being part of this region. We're going to be affected by some of these changes, and we need to start embracing those changes and saying these are the things that we want and these are the things that we don't want. But when we talk specifically about housing, one of the ways that an inner-ring suburb like Worthington can do a huge difference is via sustainability. Every time that we build a single housing unit in Worthington, that's one housing unit that isn't going 5 miles southwest of Mount Vernon, Ohio, in the middle of a cornfield that's going to need new roads, new amenities, new everything. We have all of those things here in Worthington. That's why housing is sustainability, and we need to build more housing here. It's going to be in a way that looks like Worthington. We've got a character. We absolutely are going to keep that. But when we build housing, we are sustainable. We make a huge difference in the Central Ohio region, because every single housing unit we build is on a transit route. It is new amenities, it is new grocery stores, doctors, dentists, pharmacies, everything you could possibly need. If you build a new greenfield development not far from Intel, which is probably going to happen if we don't build housing, that's when you start to lose that sustainability. That's when you start to make certain that everything that's built out there is automobile dependent. And that's the number one thing that creates carbon when we have communities like ours. So I support new housing here in Worthington, not just in one site, but kind of across the entire city. That's ADUs, accessory dwelling units, that is upzoning to duplexes in appropriate places, and just any other place that we can get housing to be sustainable here in Worthington. Thank you.
I believe that Worthington can play a great role in helping reduce some of the housing crisis that we have here in Central Ohio. Before Intel was coming, Michael Wilkos, the Senior VP of Community Impact for United Way Central Ohio, he has talked to a lot of Rotaries, a lot of groups around Central Ohio. One of the key facts that he brought up that really stood out for me was then in the Central Ohio region in 2010, we had for every 100 households, people, there was 107 homes, units. In 2020, there was 102 units for every 100 households, and there was projected in 2030 to only have 96. And that was before we had Intel. That was the trajectory we were on. There's a reason why we have all our housing prices going sky high. There's a reason why people can't find houses or rents around here, is we haven't been building enough, period, before Intel came in. Sustainability, I do believe that we need to build interiorly with transit-oriented design. I love to work within the region for CODA to have a transit corridor along High Street, which would also bring mixed-use development along High Street with all sorts of housing. Looking at all sorts of housing options throughout the entire community, having accessory dwelling units, just like AARP recommends for a livable, sustainable community, duplexes, triplexes, even fourplexes within our community. We have all those within our single family housing already, but a lot of them are grandfathered in. They're no longer legal. I'd love to open up our zoning code and provide more housing. Having that community, being able to walk to places, bike to places, I think it's essential to be able to know your neighbor, and I'd love to have more neighbors here in Worthington.
I've heard quite a few people talking about increasing housing in Worthington, and I agree with that. All kinds of housing in all kinds of places, not just one place, not just a gigantic complex, of course. But just as importantly as the comments you've heard about more housing are that it's affordable housing, you know, not luxury rental apartments that nobody actually owns. We have built communities through ownership. We invest in our houses, we invest in our neighbors, we grow up together, 20, 30, 40 years together. I've been here my entire life. And I want communities that grow up together. I don't want it to be transient where it's just 2-3 years. Somebody moves in, somebody moves out. There's definitely got to be a rental option, but there should be affordable housing that is ownership option too. If you've ever noticed, Habitat for Humanity is not building houses that people rent. They're building houses that people own. They want to give them a leg up. They want to empower them. If we're going to do affordable housing in the city of Worthington, we need to empower people. We have to be bigger than the UMCH site, and we have to recognize that the city of Worthington has built housing and continues to build housing today. Stafford Village, the Heights up at the shops at Worthington, Granby Place, Simsbury Place. All of these came online after I joined City Council in 2005. So we are doing our part as a community. We're going to do more, but it is not the only thing that we should do as a community.
Thank you. First, we absolutely have to recognize what's happening around us. As was mentioned in the question, the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission had already projected our region to grow. And now with an emphasis on many projects happening like Intel, OSU, Honda, our new airport terminal, we have to further recognize what's happening in our region. And I highly encourage you, if you have not seen the Intel presentation by Betsy Goldstein, to find her on social media and listen to that presentation, because there's things very specific that she talks about related to housing. One of them is, as a region, we need 100,000 more housing units in the next 10 years. And that's hard to even think about how much housing that is without, for me, actually seeing some kind of graphic. But I think that overall, we as a community have to be open to increasing attainable, and I like to use the word attainable as opposed to affordable, because what's attainable to each of us is different in terms of housing options for both current residents whose housing needs have changed and for the future of our community. I think if we don't do those things, and this is something that Betsy talks about in her presentation, that we are going to see, great impact to access to housing, housing costs, and homelessness. So I would hope overall that our community is open to having the conversation.
Great, yeah, thanks. So I like this question on the front because it's really kind of the biggest question that's out there today. It's probably the issue that's driving this whole election this season. And it breaks down with philosophies, and there's really two separate philosophies going on here. And if you listen to some of the comments, some of the responses, you'll start to get a feel for those philosophies, I think, and throughout the rest of this evening. The first question with that is essentially, from an altruistic standpoint, from a philosophical standpoint, do we have a responsibility to grow, to allow more people to come in, to enable more housing units in Worthington as a city? I think we might all agree, the feedback I've heard is I think we might all agree that yes, to some degree, but what degree? That becomes the next philosophical question. At what point is too much housing? Well, if you look at the spatial context of Worthington, our city infrastructure can really only handle about 500 to 600 more units throughout the entire city. That's not just one site, that's throughout the entire city. That's our current infrastructure because of how it was built and designed. And that goes way back with conversations with city engineers for the past decade. So, you think about that and how the context can happen. You can find and target specific developments or redevelopments and infill in that way where it doesn't impact greatly the infrastructure, where it doesn't impact the neighborhoods, where you can have even ownership in an affordable way or an attainable way. I really like that because you can work with developers who are open to that model and provide those housing units that make sense for Worthington.
Listening.
As far as housing goes, I definitely hear about this in the salon all the time. A lot of people that have lived in Worthington their whole life, and they want to stay here. They really would love to get out of their 4-bedroom house, but they really don't have anywhere to go. And then that would also free up those homes for younger families with smaller kids. But I definitely think that we need more housing. I think that we need to add some modest-sized developments or redevelopments kind of all around our city. There are definitely spots where it can be done, like Tollgate or Granby Place, like Mike mentioned. But I think that they need to be harmonious with the surrounding neighborhoods and not disruptive to what we have going on already, because what we have is great. And I just am afraid that, this massive apartment complex that some people are for, I just think that that does not go along with what most of our residents really, really want in our city. And I do think there's a way to do it. I just think we have to be smart about it and find the right spots and just do the best we can do with working with what we have. Thank you.
Thank you all. Another question that we have, we take great pride in our community pool, and we can all agree that this is an asset to all of us who live here. Can you please be specific on how you believe the city should help or work with Swim Inc. to ensure the future of it? And staying in order, we will go with Tom and work our way around.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the city needs to work with Swim Inc. And every other partner out there to make certain that we keep that asset here in Worthington. A little bit of an embarrassing thing to mention to everyone. I can't swim. And so let's talk about that. But one of the things that when we talk about what do we want to do with city funds is we have to talk about a public policy reason for why we want to do those things. And so there are drowning deaths all the time, all across the U.S. because people like me can't swim. I was a huge nerd and sat in my basement, played video games. But, there are a lot of my friends who went to the pools, learned how to play, learned how to swim, did all that kind of stuff. So that is our public policy reason to make certain that we have a pool. So I think it's pretty easy to say that we have that going on. I've looked at the options. There's 3 options. I think the third one is probably the best. It has the most amenities. That's the $15.4, $15.6 million one. And I want to work with swimming and everyone else involved to make certain that we have a unique funding stack for our unique situation here. Again, we are the only Central Ohio municipality that has a nonprofit running their pool. That's not something that exists anywhere else. So what we're going to need to do is take a long look at what we're going to do with our funding stack. No silver bullets, no nothing like that. We need to make certain that we can reduce the top line number however we can, whether that's with fundraising, corporate donations, or whatever. Then we can reduce that further, potentially having some of our own city funding involved, and then look at the remainder and figure out what's the best way to finance that. Is it bonds? Is it a joint recreational district? What are the options that we have available, and what are the pain points which each one of those options are going to go into? It's not something that's easy to solve. It's not something that we're going to solve up here today. But what I am committed to is making certain that we go through the process to figure out exactly what the easiest and best way for us to keep that community asset here is. Thank you.
So the pool is an amazing asset that we have here in Worthington. Growing up, I was able to swim in our local pool, and we had an actual private pool that was public. It was privately run, an outdoor pool in the summer and an indoor pool that the school owned, an auditorium, and I swam in both, rode my bike, walked to those, and unfortunately, when I was a kid, the pool closed up. It was paved over, and it's still it's paved over today. I would hate to have that happen here in Worthington. My son grew up here, was on the swim team, was a lifeguard, and once again is now a firefighter. We need this pool. I've been on Swim Inc. 2 different times. It is an essential asset for the community. There's so much public good to having people learn how to swim that they can have that skill for the rest of their life. Also, the community amenity of having that place in the summer where you can go meet your friends, where you can have your first job. It is an essential piece of our community. The hard part is going to be to figure out how we're going to pay for it. I appreciate what the City Council is doing right now in working with Swim Inc. and the schools, looking for all the different ways that we can have the revenue to improve that pool. It can be a jewel once again. It can be a revenue maker. We do have economic development here at the MAC with the people that come here. They do bring in water polo and other swim meets. It can be a revenue driver that way too. There's so many different great aspects of the pool. We need to keep on working together as a community to keep it here.
I feel like I've talked about the pools a lot over the past decade, and that's because that's kind of how long I've been working on it. When I was in the legislature in 2015, I worked to secure $1 million for Worthington pools, had to get support from Jim Hughes and representatives who had seen pools close like Olympic. And we know that the general public pool, the non-country club pool, is a dying breed. We have one of the last ones, and it's dying. It's 70 years old. It's way past the cycle that a community like ours should be replacing its assets. So it was really frustrating. The issue isn't, do we love the pool? Everyone up here loves the pool. They've all told you that. The issue is, where is City Council in making a decision? $1 million comes in from the state in 2016, and it's 6 to 7 years later, and we have a working group. They met today. They're not going to have a recommendation. They're going to give the notes back to council and talk about it more. We have people talking about a property tax for the pools. I don't think we need a property tax. I think we need to issue bonds and responsibly pay for it and make sure that it's a profitable facility and pays part of its own freight. But every community, every great community in Ohio and across the United States has a great outdoor pool. It's inconceivable that we would just let it shut down. So let's rebuild the pool. Let's do it sensibly. But let's stop kicking the can down the road. UMCH has been talked about for 10 years. The pool has been talked about for 10 years. The deer have been talked about for 3 years. When are we going to make decisions?
Amy.
Thank you. So, as you all know, the swimming structure of our pools has been relevant for close to 70 years. But like many things in our community, it's time to reimagine what that looks like. So currently serving on the school board, I have been participating in the working group that's been mentioned, talking about what are we gonna do moving forward with the pool. And I think it's important that we all work together and come together to find solutions. I don't know what that perfect answer is. If somebody did, it would have been solved by now. But I think it's important that the willingness to work together. As you know, the pool structure is complicated because it's on school district land. And that leads to a level of funding and land use, land ownership complexity that really has to be thought through. I think as far as funding goes, I think that it would have to be some combination of whether it be bonds, a joint recreation district, private donations, some combination thereof. But the most important thing is I think that the city and the school district work together to find a solution to our pool.
Great, yeah, thanks. Great topic. This is a timing issue as well. So yes, we all have the pools. I think there's some ideas floating out there around tax increases, property tax increases, proposals, things like that. I do not support that personally. I am on the working group and that conversation has come up. I think there's a very real pending imminent danger almost about the pool, and at least from the board's perspective on Swim Inc. and some liabilities there that they're not interested in having. So I think in the meantime, we need to figure out a way, and there is a way, that we can easily bond, as easily as any bonding can be. We can bond the pool to sustain it as it is and maintain it. Now, then that brings the question of, do we want to improve it? Do we want to reconstruct it? That conversation, the way it's been going, I believe is going to take a little more time than the time that the pool has left on it. So I think it's, in my mind, is a two-phase approach almost, where you have the first phase of keeping the pool operational, where we don't miss too much time fixing it and keeping it up and running for the public. And then you have the second phase, which is figuring out longer term what that structure looks like, who's the owner, who's going to take care of it, who's going to do the operations, and what it physically is going to look like. So those are my thoughts. I've been living with this for a while and thinking it through, and I'm presenting that to you today.
So unlike Tom, I learned to swim at Worthington Pool, and Barb Kay helped me out a lot with that. And I've been laying at that pool for almost my entire life. My kids grew up swimming there and everything else, and I am firmly committed to the continuation of our outdoor pools in Worthington. I cannot fathom our community without it. I think that it would be a travesty. It's just part of Worthington. And I look at the floaters that are there every day, every single day. And it's such a meeting place for these people that have been doing this year after year after year. So from that standpoint, I just think the community really needs it, just from a place of, coming together and just good old fashioned fun, and also just a basic life skill of learning how to swim. But I do think that we need to have creative thinking with a combination of private fundraising, the operational surpluses, and city financing through the issuance of long-term bonds. Thank you.
Yeah, well, like many on this stage, the pool was a fond place of my childhood. It's where we spent a lot of our summers. There's no way I can really picture Worthington without that resource for families and guests alike. And so, as many have said, if all have said, I'm very committed to keeping the pool open. The challenging part, as we've heard from Swim Inc. over the last several months during our council hearings, is they have revenue to cover operating costs, not infrastructure repairs, and certainly not major infrastructure repairs. And so, as it's been hinted on a little bit, we've got a $10 million option, a $12 million option, and a $15 million option from Swim Inc.'s designs. That is far too much money for the city to cut one check without irresponsibly depleting our infrastructure funding and really deprioritizing a lot of other key infrastructure projects. So that's not something I can get behind. I don't think that's a responsible choice, nor should it fall entirely on the community. What I would support is a little bit of a little bit of city funding, some private sector, public-private partnerships, some fundraising with Swim Inc., and then look at how do you maybe phase it in over time. So the downsides of that are you stretch out construction costs. That does increase that a little bit. But again, I just don't think we can shoulder it all at one time unless we were to do a little bit of cash, a little bit of private fundraising, maybe some bonding. But we have to look at how do we strategically continue it, because we have a lot of other critical infrastructure needs like water lines in Colonial Hills and other things, like we just completed the bridge on Wilson Bridge Road. We have other things we just can't deprioritize. And so how do we look at creative opportunities to combine it to continue to meet all of our infrastructure needs while maintaining the pool over the next several years and repairing it to where it should be?
Thank you very much. Everyone got to speak, right? I'm just trying to keep tabs of everyone with so many of you up here. I am taking notes, though, so I don't skip. And for this third question, I just want to make sure before I ask it, I don't see any submitted questions. I'd like to ask a question from my seat running the chamber and working alongside roughly 530 businesses who invest annually in our chamber, and businesses who haven't invested, who are asking questions for support in our community. And in talking to them about this upcoming election and being up here, I've heard through this process, as well as our events and roundtables, just thoughts and frustrations from local business owners of how long it takes to go through processes, or the opportunities that they miss because we're discussing details of how their business should be. And I've even had the opportunity through my 2 years here of talking to businesses who have left here and were willing to give insight that led to their experiences and frustrations. So with that being said, and to try and uplift this with your visions, if elected, how would you work alongside especially our smallest of businesses to ensure that they can continue to do business here in Worthington? And we will start with Rachel.
Well, yes, I do believe we do have economic development outreach to go and try to talk to every business owner and see what needs they have in Worthington. But one of the things that I have heard is how difficult it is to have any development in Worthington. In addition to looking at zoning for housing, I would like to look at zoning for mixed-use zoning and businesses, changing everything to a form-based code. So we have a more idea what the massing will look like of businesses, but not being so prescriptive of what each business has to be along High Street, the business corridors. I would love to open up different avenues to have more businesses here in Worthington. I know we're having a Huntley Road and Proprietors Road study looking into that, so I'd love to find out what happens, what the city's going to do, what recommendations we're going to have to increase businesses along that corridor. Also, Wilson Bridge Road corridor is very important. We have Worthington Industries there. We have animal hospitals there. It's something that we need to focus on, because the revenue that the city relies on is from that 2.5% income tax, the people who work here that pay to Worthington. That is the lifeblood of all our great services. We do have high property tax, but only 6% of that goes to the city. We are very reliant on the businesses. So definitely listening to what the businesses have to say and taking that feedback in, but also looking at what we can do to have more streamlined development that fits the city. We definitely need to have protections of what it looks like in the city, but allow for more mixed uses, more housing along High Street.
Matt, I'm really glad that you said small businesses, because as I mentioned at the beginning, I think that's what makes Worthington different, and that we're not trying to imitate every other community in Central Ohio. I'll tell a story about when I tried to work on a mural project behind House Wine. Behind House Wine, it is just a blank beige wall. We had a local artist from CCAD. It was a girl holding a jar of fireflies, a soccer ball, and a dog. That's all that was on the mural. We went to the Worthington ARB, shut down. I had signatures from Bob Capace, from Worthington Jewelers, from House Wine's owners, Ride Home, LA Nail Salon. All the business owners signed that they wanted that mural to be to be built, and it didn't happen. And that shut down murals for like, I don't know, close to a decade, and now we finally are doing temporary stuff right now in the city. So we do need to be faster and better in our processes, and we need to embrace everything that makes Worthington different. Small, unique, it's not cookie cutter, it's not the continent where it doesn't last the test of time because some outside investor, when they want to pull the plug, just pulls the plug. We're here for the long haul. We need to support our business community. There are smart ways to do it, but it is not a blank check. It doesn't mean if they're going to break the sewer that we completely say, we'll pay it all, the taxpayers, we'll just subsidize you. Development for development's sake. There are going to be people who complain because one time somebody wanted to turn a house that was next to somebody else's house into a business, and it wasn't zoned for that. UMCH today is not zoned for residential, and you're telling the surrounding neighborhood 5-story buildings. There are going to be times when the city needs to say no, but most of the time we should be saying yes, and we should be saying yes very fast.
I think the first thing that I would want to understand better is specifically what those challenges are for our small businesses and any of our businesses. Obviously, I think all of us sitting up here can recognize some of those, but I think talking to those business owners is important. And I don't disagree with the comment about looking at some of our processes internally within the city to see what we can do to improve upon those. I think that's very important. I also think engaging with the chamber and showing up to ribbon cuttings and grand openings for businesses shows businesses that are coming into our community that we want them here. And I think that that's very important. I will just say that we all have to recognize that there are great opportunities to attract businesses to our community because of the increase in population to our region. And we should all want to really be open to exploring what that looks like.
Great. Yeah, thanks. So I've been a small business owner since 2007, and I understand the struggle, and certainly we have a great leader here of the chamber who can be a conduit for that conversation with all the businesses. I think one example of a good program that the city's come up with is the FACE program, which is the facade improvement program over on the industrial corridor, eastern side of town, and I helped lead and spearhead that on the CIC, on the Community Improvement Corporation, where a business might say, hey, we really need help like physically improving our space and our appeal, and so we did that with a grant program, so we could set up other programs like that throughout town for other purposes. We have venture grant programs through economic development that allow businesses to tap into grant funding if they promise X amount of jobs increased in the city. So there are creative and interesting and win-win situations where we can learn what those struggles are and really understand, okay, in today's world, maybe it's not the FACE program, maybe it's something different, and we can build those programs for today's businesses.
I personally have owned my own business in downtown Worthington since 2001. So I've had to deal with the city at different times, and luckily 23 years, whatever in, I've been fortunate enough that I haven't really needed to go to the city for much, but through the salon and through fellow businesses that I just am friends with the owners, I definitely have heard challenges of things just being held up. And I think that that's probably kind of what Mike was saying. I think that we need to have a council that kind of tries to maybe work together a little bit quicker and tries to have a little less inaction, a little more like progressive thinking for the businesses that come into Worthington. Because I think even though we want to stay true to our, historical downtown, I still think the cool additions like Joya's and like what they did with Dewey's. I think we have a lot of very unique places in our town, and I'm very proud to have a business in our downtown. And I would just be even more excited for even more of these unique places to come in and hang their shingle out. And I also, the fact that our city is zoned for commercial, and we have over 20% compared to Upper Arlington, which is like 6 or 7%, and Dublin is like 10 or 11. So we have a lot of commercial property that is, adding to our city. And I do agree also the Huntley Road, Proprietors Road area. I think that we could really do a lot with that too, with combining housing and more businesses and kind of build that whole quadrant up for our city also. But I am very proud to have a business in our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, businesses are the lifeblood of the city financial standing. So much of our revenue comes from income tax, which comes from good jobs. And so I think we do have a very positive business environment here in Worthington, but certainly that doesn't mean we can't regularly evaluate it and get at concerns that may be coming from members of the chamber or other business owners, because the difference with a small business of one undue burden could end a business, it could end a dream, quite frankly, or they could go somewhere else. And so that's certainly not the environment I think we need or want in Worthington. And so our city staff do a tremendous job, both with the building and zoning teams, as well as our economic development teams, to be that open door. But certainly we can always look for ways to go out, just like with residents of the community, and find new ways to engage them, new ways to hear them. And I would certainly be supportive of doing that with the expertise of the folks we have on staff. But I think it's really got to be a priority because we need businesses here, and it's really what makes our day of life unique. It's really what most of us use for our retail experiences here in Worthington, is those small businesses, whatever the service may be. So I appreciate all of them, and we need to make it a friendly environment.
Yeah, I love this question because it's essentially what I do in my day job. For 15 years, I've been an economic development official for the state of Ohio. All I do is public-private partnerships. And so one of the things I've learned very early on is that the best way to figure out what a business wants is to actually just ask them and listen. And so that's one of the things that I want to propose. A couple months ago, I would have told you that I wanted to start a grant loan fund for most vulnerable businesses, or minority-owned businesses, or veteran-owned businesses, or women-owned businesses. In more conversations I've had on doorsteps and with the businesses out there might be other needs out there. So I'm excited to go out there and direct staff to have more conversations, to talk more with the chamber and say, how can we better help our small businesses that are minority owned, that are veteran owned, that are women owned, like that. But as the other thing that I want to talk about that's I think really important that plays into this, as you heard a lot from everybody else up here about how slow the process is in Worthington. And in my day job, one of the things that probably the thing that scares me the absolute most is the number of projects you lose that you don't even know you were in the running for. Our reputation will precede us. We have been difficult to work with for years. People in Central Ohio know that. Site selectors know that. Everybody involved in this process knows that. We are losing projects that are happening because of Intel before we even know we're in the game, because people look at that, they say, oh, well, I saw how it took 110 outreach meetings for the Hartford to get built. I don't want to go through that process. I've got a business. I have to make money. I have to do what I need to do. That's entirely too much risk. We can't keep losing these projects. We need to at least have them on our radar. And that's one of the things that I'm committed to doing, is making certain that we start to streamline some of these things to make it easier for businesses to come to Worthington and do things. I am very unabashedly pro-development, but what that means is I'm pro-city revenue, I'm pro-small businesses, I'm pro-making this community better. Thank you.
Thank you all for answering that. No one gets extra points for talking about how good the chamber president is. With that being said, and looking that we're coming up on the overall time, we're going to ask one more question. All the hard ones, we're going to wait to address it another time, but we're going to give you a fun one, because I think, like I said in the quote earlier, we need to be defined by our vision for the future. And so with that being said, council and the community partners are working currently on our visioning committees, which would mean a couple dozen action items are going to come from city leaders, elected, and community leaders who volunteer their time and have done so in a 4-meeting process and 7 visioning groups. Those feedback, or that feedback, is going to be coming back to council soon. What do you want to see to come out of this, and how would you ensure that action is taken? And with that being said, Mike, you're next to start off.
Thanks, Matt. I've been watching the visioning process for quite a while, and you might have seen the previous visioning report that came out. You will struggle to find anything tangible about land use, about tax policy, about the pools. Everything that we are talking about tonight, that every candidate has said is an important issue, is not discussed in that document, and has not been discussed as part of the visioning process, except in platitudes. And this is part of the problem that we're facing as a community, is that we have to get past platitudes and slogans, and we have to start making real decisions that don't take 10 years to make. So the real decisions that I want to make are I'm saying no to a project that is overwhelmingly opposed by the community, that the city changed its charter with 3,167 votes, and a majority of residents said, no, we want more time. If we have to rezone, challenge rezoning, we want more time. This was all a signal that council wasn't listening to residents. Residents are saying, do something about the pool. So we have to be more than just a visioning plan. We can't just talk in generalities. We can't just say, I love you, you love me, that's great. I do love you. I hope you love me, some of you don't. But that's okay. The point is, what does that have to do with the price of bread? How are we going to zone this land? That's the important thing that we need to focus on.
Thank you. And Amy?
So the visioning process involved a large amount of community members in Worthington through quite a length of time to come up with those visioning goals. And then it sat. And now that process is moving forward. And I think that that is incredibly important to look at that feedback as city council. While it may not address specific issues of how we fix specific things, it addresses what the community wants overall. And I think that is what is important about that visioning process and plan. And I just do not think that we should discount it because our community member, that's the work of our community members.
So I was the author of the visioning documents years ago when it first started out, and council approved the idea of, which was a crazy idea, of doing what I would call a census, knocking on doors, and the KPI there was 80% of residents. We would talk to 80% of residents throughout the city. If you start doing some math, that's thousands of people, right? And then everybody was psyched about that. We got the consultant, we got the team ready to go, and then the strangest thing happened in March of 2020, things shut down. And so we didn't get a chance to do that. And the visioning team, the original visioning team, they did a great job pivoting and doing online meetings and reaching out in ways like mail and email and that type of thing. So we did the best we could at the time, which was a really crazy time. So my vision is still to continue to go out there and reach 80% of the residents at least, because I think we need to know what people are actually thinking. And we know, what this group and that group and so on are thinking, but to get a full, real good idea of what everybody's thinking. Now I'll talk a little bit about specifics. I'm co-chairing the connectivity, Worthington's Connected group, which is one of the 7 vision statements. And we've come up with what I think are some really awesome ideas, and I hope you guys vote for them during the public sessions. One of them that I think is really great is a sidewalk connectivity plan, which will also include helping senior citizens especially pay for sidewalk repairs and replacements if they're required to do so or want to do so. In addition to that, strengthening the Wi-Fi signal for downtown Worthington and all of Worthington so people can get free access to internet.
And Felicity.
So my visionary idea for Worthington, again, just being here my whole life, I've been really taking note recently, and I think that we have this one last green space that is so crucial to our community. And the things that I've heard, the signatures, the letters, the petitions, all of the residents are saying one thing, and I feel like the council hasn't really maybe listened as well as they should have. And I think that the things that I've heard about it, just the vision of Worthington. I told a client of mine who's from Dublin, a woman who's in her 70s, I said what was up and what was so important and why I was doing this. And she said, and I was telling her about this large apartment building that might happen. And she said, well, Worthington wouldn't be Worthington if that happened. And I was like, you're right, Connie. And she's from Dublin. So anyway, I just wanted to say that I feel like what our city could be would be this amazing commercial along High Street with some modest housing, and then where it is zoned green space, let's keep it green space and let's make it an amazing commons for our community with maybe a event space like a barn or something, and it could be a place where there's the senior initiative that just came out about how a lot of seniors in our town are feeling very lonely and disconnected. And yes, the Griswold is great, but we need something more that they could, that could be someplace where they could go and hang out, and there would be trails and possibly a pond. There could just be so many things, but I think it would be an amazing spot to connect the development up in the mall to the middle of our town to then historic downtown. And also, I would love to get a trolley going from Worthington Square down to Selby that people could hop on and off because our parking's so challenging. And I think that would be a really cool thing for our city to add. Thank you.
Pete?
Saying exactly what I want out of the visioning report is a little challenging in a 2-minute soundbite, given that it's 7 broad buckets of where the community has said through surveys and meetings where we want to go in 20 years. What excites me about what we're doing right now with our vision implementation teams, or VITs, is each one of them is led by a council member. I have the honor of leading the sustainability focus group. They're supposed to come up eventually with 2 to 3 policies that can happen in the next 12 to 24 months. So how can we just start taking steps down that road? And as Councilmember Smith mentioned, this really came to a halt with the pandemic because we couldn't focus on it for a number of reasons. And so I'm excited that it's just starting again. And so this fall into the winter, if the issue that you care most about in one of those 7 buckets is not a part of the list that we're talking about, come tell us, email us, call us, come to the meetings, tell us what you think needs to happen in the next 2 to 3 years to just start moving us in the right direction. And the broad categories are vibrancy of downtown, Worthington is diverse, equitable, and inclusive, sustainable, connected with bike and pedestrian access. And so if the thing that you feel is missing is not there, let us know, because we don't want to miss a chance to just start taking the right steps to evolving where the community has said we need to go. So that's what excites me most, is we're just starting down the road with 1 to 2 year goals with what we're talking about right now and moving forward on.
Yeah, I love the vision plan. I think one of the things about the vision plan that maybe isn't necessarily known is that that's part of a comprehensive planning process that exists in a lot of municipalities out there. So the vision plan, to make it pretty simple, is who we want to be when we grow up in 20 years, like Pete was just saying. The next step in that, which I've been advocating for at this point for years, is to do a full comprehensive plan review and figure out how we can take that vision plan and turn it into actual action. The vision plan is the map of how we get to where, or the comprehensive plan is the map of how we want to get to where we want to be in 20 years. That's a map. That's what we need to do. That's why the next step is definitely do a comprehensive plan. It's going to involve a lot of those conversations. This is the first step. The vision implementation teams are the first step, because it's going to take difficult conversations to figure out what we want to prioritize, how we want to prioritize those things. We live in a world of limited resources. We won't be able to do everything. But the way you turn those broad goals into actionable items is through community input and through community outreach. That is part of a comprehensive plan. That it's something that I will absolutely guarantee, if I'm elected, that we will be pushing to make certain through, because we need that map to figure out how do we get to where our citizens have said we want to be in 20 years. So that's how I want to deal with the vision plan. I'm really excited to do that. I think everything should go back to those goals. Even though they're broad, you'd be amazed. Sometimes there's projects out there that don't fit in some of those buckets, and you're like, well, why are we doing this? Maybe that is something that we don't need to be doing. So I'm really excited to get to work and do that and start listening to everybody in this room and the rest of our community on how do we want to get to where we want to be in 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel.
So I was at the start of the visioning plan, and I do think that it does lead into a new comprehensive plan, but it begins with a collaborative leadership for a diverse and equitable community. I would love to allow for more housing throughout Worthington, all types of housing. I have knocked on doors and talked with homeowners, and we talked about it in the school board about people who are afraid that they'll have to leave Worthington because their taxes are rising and they don't have any other place to move to. They can't downsize, they can't go anywhere else, but they love Worthington, they want to stay here. I'd love to provide more housing for people to come in here who don't live here, and for people to stay here to downsize. Dedicated to the vibrancy of downtown, I'd love to provide more mixed uses, more people, more action, people who are connected to each other, connected with the bike and walking, but also connected when they go out and meet each other in the community. having Worthington be a model for environmental stewardship, that is something that we started with. I think we can continue with a sustainable growth. I think we did start as a trolley community. I love the idea of a trolley, but also rapid transit and circulators. Public transit, I think, is an essential part of any city for sustainability. I'd love to keep that going here for high quality of life, but also making sure we have a balanced and resilient economy. Once again, the lifeblood of our community is having people who work here pay our taxes, but the people who work here also want to live here. They want to play here. We need to have everyone here working together to get to those vision goals, and it's one step at a time, and we have the first step, and we need to keep on taking the steps to get to those visions.
What a time to be alive. Just hearing all of your responses, the visioning coming to council, the impact of Intel, talking about what we can be doing as we come out of the recession here in our community, being leaders in Central Ohio in our community. This is fantastic. I'm equally as excited to hear your closing statements as we close with 1 minute for each of you to share. So I believe, Mike, you were last. So Amy, you can lead us off.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all again for being here this evening and listening to all the candidates who are running for local office here in Worthington. As I've shared this evening, I've established myself as an involved community member. I'm aware of the successes and challenges of both the city of Worthington and Worthington schools. I am also very much aware of the changes that are going to occur to Central Ohio and our region in the coming years. I want to help proactively plan for the future of our community by working towards Vision Worthington's goals and economic sustainability. You can follow my campaign by checking out my website, lloydforworthington.com, which also has links to my campaign social media accounts. I truly love being involved in my community. I would appreciate your support on November 7th by voting Amy Lloyd for Worthington City Council.
What a time to be alive. I like that. That's great.
I got inspired by everyone. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm supposed to just be quiet.
I feel like I've missed like 20 people over here behind the podium, so I'm going to talk to you guys for a second. Hey, you know, this has been hopefully a start of a conversation. I encourage everybody here to really get down to the bare bones of what each one of us believes and what specific actions that we want to take with our philosophies, because there's a lot of kind of abstract thinking and talking here, and you can only get so much in 2-minute segments, and it's difficult. But, you know, reach out to each of us. I say that for myself. I hope everybody agrees that you can reach out to them too, and really pin us down on questions about specific things that you have on your mind, because I'm open to answering that. I think we have a great community here. I don't believe we need to fix it. We can enhance it through authentic growth and keep our family-friendly communities, our community and neighborhoods, and keep them going. I'm Doug Smith. Visit DougSmithOhio.com to see all my articles.
Felicity.
Thank you to the League and Chamber for co-hosting, to the members of the public, to my fellow candidates for coming to this great event. We've talked about many issues tonight, and throughout everything I've said, the conviction is that we live in a community with extraordinary people that know why they choose to live in Worthington. And who knows better than them versus corporations or consultants that are going to come in, and we know what makes Worthington such a special place and how to keep it that way. As we make big decisions, we should listen to the residents of Worthington for inspiration and guidance, not just the most vocal, but listen to all of us. I have and I will. I'm certain that if we do this, we can both preserve what we love about our amazing city and advance confidently into the future. We don't need to imitate others. Instead, we can be true to ourselves and in that way make Worthington the best that it can be. We can do hard things. We can do wonderful things. I hope you'll give me, Felicity Beck, the opportunity to serve. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for being here. I'll echo those comments. But again, my name is Pete Booker. I again ask for your vote, for your confidence to serve on City Council for a second term. I won't make any promises up here other than I'll continue to approach the job the way I've tried to the last 4 years, which is with inclusiveness, community involvement, engaging businesses and residents, transparency, and a mindset of taking advice and advisory opinions from all that want to come to the table to make balanced decisions. I don't see how else you can approach this. I don't see how else our city government can thrive at the council level other than that. And so I appreciate your consideration. My website's www.pete-booker.com if you want to learn more. Thanks for being here tonight.
Excellent. Thank you to the League, the Chamber, the MAC for hosting, Matt for moderating, and all of you for being here tonight. I'm really excited to continue to get out there and talk to each and every one of you. We have an ambitious plan to knock on almost every door here in Worthington, probably not my own. But I'm really excited to continue to do that work because I want to make certain that we manage change. And I have to be honest with everyone, I am change. I am the son of a steel worker. I am the first Latino candidate for city council here in Worthington. I did not grow up here. I am change, but I want to work for you. And I'm going to continue to get out there and try and earn your vote on November 7th when you go to the polls and vote for some of us. If you want to follow along on my campaign, you can check that out at Tom Loves Worthington. That's the username on Instagram or Facebook, or at tomlovesworthington.com. I'm excited to meet you all, even and everyone else out here in my community. Thank you.
As Mr. Burns and Mr. Smith has said, that I think we've shown that there are differences among the candidates here. I think there is a big choice you have to make, and I thank everyone. I think you, Matt, and the MAC and the League of Women Voters and everyone here educating themselves that there are differences between all of us up here and how we want to manage the change of Worthington moving forward into the future. I love living here. I love talking with people. I love making new friends. I love making new connections. I would love to be able to serve you again on City Council. My website is racheldorothy.com. I hope to earn your vote. I love to talk with people, find out what they're passionate about, find solutions to the problems that they're having. Anything I can do, please contact me, and I appreciate your consideration for your vote.
We're almost done. It's great. So I've done a lot of these forums before in the past. I'll just say, I think that this community is frustrated because there are a lot of decisions that just haven't been made. They're just taking too long and they're just not being made. I promise that if I'm elected to the city council, we will make decisions. And I will push for those decisions to happen on a timely basis. There's only so many first steps that we can take. There's only so many side steps that we can take before we actually need to elect people that do something. And not just what they want to do, but what you want them to do. And it may be that my vision isn't the same as yours. It may be your vision is exactly the same as mine. You've seen it in pictures. You know what I'm about. You know that I'm for the pool. You know I'm not for a tax. You know that I support doing something about the deer overpopulation. I'm not going to talk about a survey or all these things. Let's do it. We did it when I was a kid. It wasn't that big of a deal. So let's make decisions. Let's move forward. That's what I offer. DuffyForWorthington.com. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to all candidates. Thank you all for, again, like I said, with our school board candidates, thank you for the sacrifice of your time, your willingness to support our community. I do have a couple quick announcements that I do want to share. I'd like to close today by thanking all of our candidates and to invite you to check out our Amplify Worthington podcast, where you can hear more from all 7 of our city council candidates to learn more about their visions. Tonight's recording will be hopefully up online here later today or tomorrow morning, that you'll be able to rewatch this or share with friends. I'd like to give a big thank you to Boxland Media, who is doing that. I want to share a quick story. Can we give them a round of applause? Boxland Media outgrew their business space on Huntley Road, but chose to remain in Worthington in a larger space. So that's just one story, and he's here to help spread the message of all 11 candidates today. And I want to thank Elizabeth and the League of Women Voters, especially the volunteers that collected questions, and then you two, because I thought I was like having to watch my phone for the timing. So thank you for keeping us on time. And thank you to all of you for taking the time out of your day when you have a lot of other things you can be doing. That shows the devotion and the heart of such an amazing community. So thank you all, and best of luck to all of our candidates.